Marozzo everybody, Elisabeth from Fior della Spada is back, and this is our third video of the Bolognese Basics series, playlist up there. Today we are talking about defensive actions. Within a fight we do not want to get hit, so after working on our stance and weapon control and some cuts in the last videos, this time we will work on our defensive actions, on our defense. Fortunately, the Bolognese system gives you a very clear and most of all universal approach, because all in all, according to the source text, we have three options when it comes down to defending. We can either parry, displace, or avoid. But what is the difference between those three in the first place? When you parry, you stop your opponent's attack by blocking his line of attack with your sword. In other words, instead of hitting you, he hits your sword. Good for you, you did not get hit, but you didn't get a real advantage out of it either. When you displace, you deflect his attack with the intention to gain an advantage out of it. A favorable position for yourself in order to perform an attack yourself. To do that, you attack the blade, you displace it. The last and most difficult way of defense is avoiding. You evade your opponent's attack by using movement only, without using your weapon for defense, but keeping it ready for an immediate or even simultaneous counter. Before we dive into the action, when you defend and something goes wrong, most of the time it is because you get one of the following three things wrong, which are angle, timing, or body positioning. And to understand that, we need to take a look at the single sword again, at the Bolognese single sword of the 16th century. In the first video, I already showed you the sword and the concept of the edges, false edge and true edge, or filo dritto and filo falso, but for defending we need more. Here we are again with our single sword, Italian style 16th century. As you already know, you have your two edges, filo dritto, filo falso, and when it comes to defending, it is important to know that the sources talk about two parts when they refer to the blade, which are the forte and the debole. Forte, which translates to strong, is the part below of the blade, this third here, and the debole, which translates to weak, is the upper third of the blade. And why are they called weak and strong? Basically because at your forte you have better leverage and that's an advantage, while at the debole it's vice versa. So, based on what I just told you, to avoid the most common mistakes, please keep the following things in mind. So first, when we parry, displace, whatever, we use our edge against his flat at best, for better power transmission. Number two, we use the forte of our sword, so the lower half of the blade, for better leverage. Number three, we target the debole of our opponent, so his upper third or the upper half of his sword. Now, many people ask why the edge, will it not ruin the edge of my blade eventually? Yes and no. The edge of your sword will eventually get damaged, but you can file some of the damage out. You can also wet the blade for better maintenance. It's all part of the game. But eventually the day will come when you throw your sword away and you need a new one. This is how Europeans have handled the case for centuries, and HEMA do that still today. But you don't need to panic. You don't need to buy a new simulator every 2 months. A good simulator lasts for years, and my oldest simulator, for example, is I think over 6 years old. It shows signs of usage, but it's still totally in good shape and I can still use it. That was the theory behind it, and now let's talk about some exercises and your first steps towards learning how to parry, how to displace, and how to avoid. Parry. So for now, let's just take 3 guards of the style and learn how to use them as a defensive parrying movement. We need guardia di testa against attacks coming from above, coda longa e stretta or alta against attacks towards your right, and porta di ferro stretta or alta against attacks towards your left. Each of these guards blocks the corresponding lines of attack, so If you practice this, a partner would come in very handy, so make sure you find someone willing to beat you with a sword. And quick remark, if you also want to add later on attacks coming from below, the only thing you have to do is to lower the tip. But for now, let's just concentrate on everything coming from above. Your partner first gives you only attacks from above, then only from the upper right, last only from the upper left. When you feel comfortable with the guards, found the correct angle and timing, he can start to mix them, eventually attack more times in a row, and then you could add steps. Displace. Displacements are much more difficult. You need to have the correct angle and to make sure that you get his debole with your forte, so his weak part with your strong part of the sword. Timing is crucial. To start out, I suggest the following. You start in coda longa e larga, so if you're right-handed, hand on the right side of your knee or your outside, as other fencing systems say, point facing down. The opponent attacks with a step and a mandritto fendente or squalembrato, so coming from above and from the right again. You try to displace him with a falso cut from below while stepping forward. If you succeed, you can add a counter, a thrust into guarda di becca possa, for example, also called guarda di leon corno in some sources. Avoid. The first exercise when you want to learn how to avoid attacks is to learn how to estimate distance. Now, if like me, you're a fan of martial arts in general, and you observe other fighters, it doesn't matter if armed, non-armed, what style, whatever, but if you observe really the best of their style, you will often see that there is one skill they all brought to perfection. They have an impeccable sense of measure. So here an idea how to approach this type of exercise or learning for the first time. Put on protective gear, at least a mask. Your partner does one step towards you and throws one cut at will, but sometimes deliberately out of range. If you think he would not reach you, you do not move at all. Let his blade pass and perform a counter if you want. If you think he would hit you, you avoid by stepping back. Communicate with your partner. If you step back and he would not have reached you, he has to tell you obviously. Your partner is coaching you, so it's best if he starts the exercise by making his attacks very obviously out of range or in range at first. Make it harder step by step and communicate about it all the time, as I said. Now, if you watched our Bolognese footwork video, you will probably know that stepping back is not really number one on our list if we want to stay in style. So, according to the source texts, it would be much more desirable for you to step out of the line, according to Marozzo's circle, for example. And the thing is, that is much more difficult and therefore a real accomplishment. Not only do you have to precisely estimate the distance, but your timing has to be really spot on. And even if you manage to avoid the attack, your partner or your opponent could still be able to change the direction of his attack and hit you. Although, one thing I want to say about this, because this is one point where unfortunately HEMA cannot really emulate the reality with sharp swords. Because if you have the right timing and you manage to avoid the initial attack, it might still be possible for your opponent to change the direction of his attack and to hit you, but the question is, would he be capable to still, generate enough force to do some damage? Would he still be able to align his blade correctly to do damage at all? If you strive towards, fencing as if the swords were sharp, you could probably say, okay, this is definitely a skill that would work. If you stay within HEMA, with the protective gear, with the simulators, you can never tell for sure. Also in tournaments, it's most of the time touch equals point. So depending on what you aim for, what your training goals are, you have to decide if learning how to avoid makes any sense at all, and if learning how to avoid stepping out of line makes sense for you. Although I think if you manage to pull it off, it would be spectacular. That's everything I had to say on defensive actions for now. If you had fun with this content, leave a like and subscribe if you already haven't. And as always, stay respectful in the comments, stay healthy in training, and see you in the next one.